What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Scouting the Fins right here on the Three Arch Per Carry podcast network, also part of the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your co-host Hussam Patel, and joining me tonight are Coach and Eric. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Doing really, really well. Excited to talk about another crucial joint practice victory for the Dolphins here in the preseason, as well as everyone's new favorite running back, Ollie Gordon. Should be a lot of fun, guys. Hope you guys are doing well as well this evening.
Yeah, doing well also. Tonight is the eve of our high school football season. Got our week 1 game tomorrow evening, so really looking forward to that. But, before we get to that, looking forward to talking about some Dolphins run game stuff with the two of you guys.
Yeah, so a little bit of joint practice news. I was there in the morning. It was hot. Oh my God, it was hot. Like, I'm from Miami, and it was unbearably hot. One of the very first things that I noticed, well, actually, my wife noticed, was during warm-ups and stretches, how lazy some players were in doing their stretches, their warm-ups. And that caught my eye, and especially caught her eye. The first person she saw that was just flailing around was number 42, Grayson Murphy, who I think we all can say right now could potentially be on the bubble to make the 53-man roster, especially after the addition of Matthew Judon. The next thing outside of that was the Dolphins' defense was really, really good today. In indie drills, one-on-one, the defensive backs, they were getting burnt, but the quarterbacks weren't able to complete many passes. Travis Hunter had a nice catch on a comeback route against Jack Jones, but Minkah Fitzpatrick was all over the field, grabbed what would have been a potential pick six. Jason Marshall Jr. had a few tipped balls, and I gotta say, Eric, I think maybe our evaluation on Jason Marshall Jr. is coming to haunt us a little bit. Your boy BJ Adams nowhere to be found.
Listen. We were evaluating Jason Marshall Jr., the boundary corner. We did not know Jason Marshall Jr., the slot guy, existed. Because he's been much better in that role. But I'll take the BJ Adams stuff on the chin for sure.
Yeah. The offense was okay. They were getting touchdowns in red zone drills. The Jaguars' offense was not, but towards the end of practice, the Dolphins' offense just kind of flailed. They couldn't really put together a drive. It was pretty much a 3-and-out. But I felt like the practice was essentially over after the big fight. I don't know who it was because it was on the far side of the field. I saw the fight break out, but I couldn't see the numbers or the players. But the fight went all the way into the Indoor Baptist Trading Health Complex indoor bubble. So all the players were just grouped up running in there. I think everyone was just done with camp, done with practice, and they were just having a good time. I will say the Dolphins defense was hitting today. They were doing really well. Offense was not necessarily clicking in stride. I did not see Tyreek Hill today at all. Darren Waller is active from POP. He was running sprints along with tight end Julian Hill. Not sure what's going on with Julian Hill, so that was interesting. I didn't really get a chance to ask what was going on with him. But those were my initial joint practice, thoughts.
Yeah, I obviously not there right now, but there's stuff that gets put out there. I felt like this entire camp, one of the big storylines for me and for a lot of people has been the ascension of Patrick Paul. We've talked about him on here a lot, and as I tweeted out earlier that my view for him in 2025, right, I felt like his floor was just a solid tackle. I was comfortable with him coming in and stepping into that left tackle role, but he's exceeded everyone's expectations, and now he's kind of set the bar much higher, right? Where if he doesn't come out and almost perform at a Pro Bowl level here in his second season, it's almost going to feel like a disappointment compared to what he did through training camp. Whether it's against Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson, or going in against the Bears, the Lions, and even today against the Jaguars. Sounds like he was doing a lot of good stuff. So, that was one of the big things for me coming out of this camp.
Now, Coach, I got to ask you, okay, camp and practice is one thing, but preseason games and actual regular seasons games is where the real evaluation takes place. So maybe do you think it's still too early to crown Patrick Paul as a solid tackle or a top 15 tackle right now in the NFL?
I don't, and the reason I say that is, when you talk about the one-on-ones that take place in these training camp practices, when it's the wide receivers versus the DBs, those drills are skewed to the wide receivers. But when you talk about the one-on-ones with the offensive and defensive line, that's skewed to the defensive line. Like, how often do you really get into a scenario where the quarterback's passing? You don't have to worry about a quarterback scrambling out. You don't have to worry about play action. It's just a flat-out pass rush. And that's what you get in those one-on-one scenarios. So to see a offensive lineman be able to win with the consistency that Patrick Paul did, I don't think that's just a training camp flash, and the fact that he's carried it over into the games with that as well. It is preseason, right? So I'm not sitting here saying he's a top 5 tackler going, over the top with it. But, where I felt like his floor was an average starter, right now I'm kind of moving that up to more of a plus starter at tackle is where I see, my minimum expectation for Patrick Paul in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a guy like Patrick Paul, it's always been, and I think that this is really kind of the best possible scenario where, again, even at a position where you're looking at guys that are really big, really strong, extremely explosive, Patrick Paul is in the top 1% of all offensive tackles in terms of his physical gifts. And he's really put in the work, and he's honed his technique to the point where, the athleticism is allowed to fully shine through. And I think that that's kind of where you get that really high ceiling out of a guy like Patrick Paul. And I think that it's going to show this year. I think he's going to take that leap and kind of really cement himself as the guy that's going to be, your left tackle for the next 10, 12 years here for the Dolphins. Now, Coach Eric, you guys have seen a little bit more of the practice here, or a little bit more of the practices just in general. One of the senses that I've gotten is, when you're building a defense, if just for me personally, if I had to sacrifice something, give me the pass rush, give me the front seven, and I'll take that pressure off my corners. I can, I'd like to have better corners, but give me pass rush over everything. The Dolphins front seven throughout camp has looked better than I can remember a Dolphins front seven in quite some time. Is this one of those instances where, a team is just so good up front defensively that they can overcome those deficiencies in the secondary?
I think it has to be. Right, it has to be, because we certainly can't depend on the secondary. If this defense is going to be good, right, they're going to have to use the beef up front that they got to be able to get those teams into those third and long scenarios. And then you have Anthony Weaver being able to be creative. And one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about with this defense is we, again, have talked about the offense and the F position on the offense. And I feel like defensively, the way that they're scheming this up, you kind of have something similar with the defense in the sense that, you've got You've got 4 down linemen, or 4 linemen, let's say. You got 2 linebackers, 2 safeties, 2 corners, and that only gets you to 10 players, right? So your 11th player can be the nose tackle, the Benito Jones. It can be a third linebacker in a Willie Gay. It can be an extra safety in an Ashton Davis when he's healthy. It could be an extra corner in that Mike Hilton. So I think that, getting to that point that you have all that different flexibility, all that different, those matchup ideas, even looking at we talked about Jason Marshall earlier, right? So, you get a smaller, quicker guy, you can go Mike Hilton. But if Jason Marshall continues to play well, if you get, look at our big slot in Nick Westbrook-Akine, if we match up with somebody along those lines, maybe Jason Marshall is a better match for that. So I think that the path has to be the front 7 being the strength of the defense. But once you get to those third down scenarios, I think the Dolphins have assembled a pretty good, tool chest of players that can match up with the different offenses they'll see.
Yeah, I think with the defense, specifically this pass rush, I think it's going to be week to week depending on who they play. For example, week 1, they play Daniel Jones. Now, he's not necessarily known like Anthony Richardson to get out of the pocket, completely beat you with your legs. Your secondary has to be on par, but if the pass rush can disrupt the timing, and it looked like they did up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially against Trevor Lawrence, which looks well, which bodes well, especially the first team defense. I think if they play against quarterbacks that are not necessarily the biggest threat with their legs, I think they'll be successful. Now, when it comes to Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, when you start playing these elite AFC teams, yeah, it's going to be rough. They're going to beat you with their legs. They're going to create movement in the pocket, which leads the wide receivers and quarterbacks playing the scramble drill, and your defensive backs are in no man's land, and it just looks bad on everyone. Now, the secondary looks like a crutch. I'm hoping it gets better throughout the season, especially with communication. Minkah Fitzpatrick is the leader of this secondary. It's going to be a very tall task on him, Ashton Davis, Jason Marshall Jr., as well, and even Dante Trader Jr. These guys need to step up in big ways and mask some deficiencies with Jack Jones, Storm Duck, and Jason Marshall Jr. is a rookie playing the nickel, and that's just a very, very tough task.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Week 2, Cam Smith was kind of pointed to as a guy that had a really good day. Granted, a lot of it was kind of in the second half. Sam, you were there today. I didn't hear anything about him one way or the other.
He had a couple of nice pass breakups. Wasn't necessarily targeted too much. I think if you don't hear about a player, it's not bad news. Unless he's making splash plays or really wowing, kind of like Ollie Gordon, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Waddle, Patrick Paul. Unless it's being noticed by a lot of people. I noticed some pass breakups and deflections, so that was a good sight to see.
All right, you guys want to go ahead and hop into the Ollie Gordon stuff?
Hell yeah, let's get to it.
Do it. All right, let's get it up. So we have 10 plays from the Lions game. He had 10 carries, so we are going to work through as many as we can here. And once I get my screen up, there we go. So this is, we've been talking about Ollie Gordon a lot, and a lot of people have, in terms of him possibly overtaking Jalen Wright as that running back too. I think that the Lions game was another game with a lot of good stuff from Ollie Gordon. So as we look at this first play here, so, even though he's cutting this one back, this one to me, I'm pretty sure is an outside zone, right? Looking at the way that everybody's outflanked here, if you look at, I'm trying to rewind it here, right? Look at the way that Keon Smith is tapping his inside hip, right? That's, to me, is a sign to Ollie Gordon to tell him that even though we're running outside zone, right, watch the way that his path starts out towards where the tight end would be, that's kind of your signal that it is outside zone. But because he got that signal, right, he's thinking cut back right away. And that's what you're getting here. You're getting a good wash from Jackson Carman and Ryan Hayes. Tanner Connor on the backside there. Not the easiest block as he's coming in motion there, right? You either want him to be able to get inside and cut off number 50, or, as he steps down here, just be able to continue to wash him down, and then you get the cut back all the way. And, the idea here is that you cut Ollie Gordon back and you have him one-on-one with the safety. Anything you guys want to add to this one before we move on to number 2? All right, let's keep rolling. Ooh, that did not work. Let's go. All right. Here we go. All right, next one. So let's see what we got here. So again, getting an outside zone look. We're getting the receiver coming across in motion, right? Track is to the outside. And on this one, I feel like this should have been a cutback, right? Looking at the leverage that we have here with the defensive end, should have taken his eyes right here, which also shows outside leverage, and really should have cut that one back. One of the things that I think is kind of setting Ollie Gordon apart from Jalen Wright is that, Jalen Wright, when he gets indecisive, kind of comes to a little bit of a stop here, right? And you can see Ollie Gordon making a late cut, but he's not necessarily coming to a stop, right? Once he realizes that he's getting a little further outside than what he should, now it's plant your foot and get upfield, and obviously doesn't get a whole lot here. But when you talk about trying to stay ahead of the sticks, sometimes the ability to get back to the line of scrimmage and get into a 2nd and 10 scenario is, just as important as getting to 2nd and 7 versus a 2nd and 12 or 13.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I noticed specifically when it comes to those short yardage situations is, you're right. You do see Jalen Wright kind of come to a stop at some point. And, I think for running backs, one of the most important lessons, especially when you've got a guy like Gordon who's as big as he is, when the blocks aren't ideal, sometimes the best way out is through and just kind of getting that forward momentum and maybe driving forward for a yard or two. That feels to me like, hey, get that leg drive, especially in those short yardage situations versus, hesitating, maybe getting caught flat-footed, and then all of a sudden you're getting pushed back for, a loss. And that's kind of where, I saw Jalen Wright specifically, I think in the first game a couple times in that sequence of, being down at the goal line, he got a little indecisive again when, sometimes the blocks aren't going to be ideal. You just push through. You gotta pick a lane and go.
Coach, is that the very next play?
Not sure if it's the very next play or not. This is the next carry.
Yeah, that's the next carry. And if you take a look at this play, same type of box, same type of play called, and he actually learns from his very last carry. He comes through the cutback lane as it opens up and gains 4 yards on 1st and 10. Now, that play necessarily does not have a positive EPA, and it may not be successful. He did not gain 50% of the yards needed on 1st and 10. Still gained some yards, positive momentum for the offense to be 2nd and 6 right at midfield. Now, when you're talking about running these types of plays and just Ollie Gordon learning from his previous mistake shows a lot of growth. Like if you can pause it, Coach, right in the middle of the play as the blocks are happening, right there, pause. Yep. He sees the hole. He's trying to take a look at the vision. The hole is there, but it's closing up, and he's going to see that cutback lane as well. If we had another angle, a different end zone angle, if we saw the back, It looks like on his third or fourth step, he makes the decision. He stops and cuts back. So that's one. That's two. That's three. And four. Right there hesitates. Perfect sequence right there by Ollie Gordon. Blocking held up nice to make that cutback lane. And I'm glad he was able to squeeze through and gain some positive yardage.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talk about a lot with this outside zone stuff. It's not necessarily we don't have to take this defender to the outside or this defender to the inside. A lot of it is just staying connected and letting the running back make you right. And that's where the vision is the key thing. And that's what you see here is that, these guys, we're not getting just dominant, blow them off the ball blocks, but everybody's staying connected and allowing the running back to find a lane to get through there. Moving on to the next one. So now we're getting a duo look here, right? So this is, as we talked about last week, everybody on the offensive line here is going to step to the left. We're getting that motion. Entire line is stepping to the left. Running backs coming to the right. So this is duo. Getting some nice, washout from Ryan Hayes, getting cut off from Myrick here, getting attached, right? And again, not big blocks here, but the steps to the left by the offensive line is going to get the defensive line going in that direction, and they're just going to continue to, take them that way, and don't need big blocks from Myrick. And is that Rucci there? That was 83, I think. No, this is Myrick, 43, and Rucci's the one that's the inline tight end there. So don't need big blocks from those guys, right? Just everybody getting attached to somebody and letting the running back make them right.
Yeah, duo is primarily a man concept, and on this play, you have a heavy box one again. It looks like 12 personnel. It's a declared run formation. On 1st and 10, good EPA on that, positive EPA. He's got at least a 1 EPA, and this is a successful play. He gains 100% of the yards needed on 1st and 10. But if you slow it down just a little bit, guys, this is like 2nd and 3rd team guys. This isn't necessarily first team NFL starters. These are role players, guys that are coming off the bench. So on some of these plays, we kind of have to take a grain of salt in terms of level of talent and competition. But it's more so after he gets the contact, the first few people to lay hands and bodies onto him is where he really shines. He's a contact seeker. He's not going to hide from contact. He's not going to shy away from it. Like, he literally lowers his shoulder into the defensive back, is still standing, and takes 3 people to take him down. He gains at least another 2 to 3 extra yards right there. I talked about it in a solo podcast I did that it looks like Ollie Gordon, as a rookie, can have an impact on this offense and change the narrative that this can be a physical offensive front, especially when they're trying to run these man concepts with him. A very big change compared to the change of pace of De'Von Achane and Raheem Mostert from last season.
Yeah, and when you talk about stuff like that, right? So you're talking about the way that he is finishing, and a lot of times that energizes an entire team. And we heard McDaniel talking about that last week, and you talked about the way that he finishes that run. I want you to take your eyes a little further back, right, and watch everybody back here, right? As he is lowering his shoulder, this entire offensive line is trying to get up here. If he'd have stayed on his feet, that pile was going to get pushed, right? And when you have a back that is going to finish a run strong, right, that juices you up a little more to chase down that play and be there to be able to push that pile forward if that option comes up. Moving on here, so this is the 5th run of the game for Ollie Gordon. Now we're getting outside zone again. So similar look here, right? Starting towards the tight end, reading the blocks. You can kind of tell by the leverage of the blocks off the snap, right? You're going to have everybody fanning out. You got Keon Smith getting out here, working the combo through number 47 with Braden Daniels. So you're asking Addison West to get out here to what is now a 2-eye technique here, defensive tackle, right? So you can kind of anticipate if you're Ollie Gordon when you're looking at this, right? Unless somebody spikes to the backside, really not going to expect Addison West to get across here. So you can kind of anticipate a cutback, right? And that's what you see as he's taking the ball there. Would have liked to see a little more movement from Josh Preeb on the backside here, because you get a nice little toss there from Ryan Hayes. If we had a little more movement on number 90 from Preeb there, then I think we're able to get Gordon north and south here and get a little more. But another example of, even though it's not great blocking here for Ollie Gordon, he wasn't indecisive in dancing around in taking this for a loss, right? Sometimes the best play you can make is to get it back to the line of scrimmage and set it up for the next play.
Yeah, this is where I think it might be almost in a weird way. A lot of people talk about Ollie Gordon not being the most agile guy as a disadvantage. But I think he's aware of that himself. And so, he's a guy that just knows himself as a runner. He's not going to try to, in that situation, dance around, because it's just really not something he can do. He's stick the foot in the ground and go. And so in those situations, you do see like that, that's the difference between getting back to the line of scrimmage and losing a couple yards on a play like that.
Absolutely. All right, moving ahead. So now we're getting two tight ends plus a wide receiver out here on the edge, right? And now we're getting that duo look again. Another nice physical run from Ollie Gordon there. You can see that 81 is that Weiss or is that Armstrong? I forget who 81 is.
That's Theo Weiss Jr. And I think
that's what I thought. Okay.
On this play, I just felt like it was a numbers game disadvantage, especially running to that side. Weiss didn't necessarily have the best block, but even on a negative, Ollie Gordon was able to squeeze out 2 yards on this to make it 2nd and 8. Albeit it's still a 2nd and long, but man, he just powers through the defensive back. Like he's able to make chicken fingers out of chicken shit. I guess that's the best way to call it. I mean, I don't know how else more you can analyze it or what else he could have done. I mean, you can say, oh, yeah, he could have bounced this outside for a better game, but there was no way this was going outside. Like, you have a defender right on the outside that can follow him. He just plows through the guy to get 2 yards. And I think that bodes well in the goal line, especially if you're running out of single back or I formation. Like, just hit the guy. Like, even though the guy might be coming up the middle or Ingold gets his hand on him, just hit the guy and you might be able to get 1 extra yard there. If you need a 1-yard touchdown run, hey, right there, just Ollie Gordon needs to lower his shoulder and hit the guy. I saw it in joint practice today on a Lions linebacker was doing the coverage drill, and Ollie Gordon caught the flat route. He catches it, lower his shoulders, and the defense and the linebacker falls to the floor, and Gordon gained an extra yard or 2 right there. Like you can't get any better than that. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if we're looking at the play overall and not just looking at Ollie Gordon, right, I'd like to see Theo Weiss be a little more aggressive here on 24, where as Ollie's delivering that blow, right, it's through the left arm of number 38, and he probably rose through it completely. But I love the fact that he's not dancing and trying to get there. Like you said, he's keeping that momentum going forward. You see that he breaks that first tackle, right? He knocks him back, and this is again, the type of play, right? If we're talking about a goal line play, when you make this type of contact and that initial contact keeps you going forward, right? That's now where you get guys behind you, and you generate that push from behind. Whereas if if you get to this point and then you try to bounce it sideways, right? Even if you break that tackle, the defense is flowing and you really don't have that forward momentum to try to get that 1-2 yards that can really be the difference.
With running backs with at least 15 carries in the preseason, Ollie Gordon is second in yards per rush after contact with almost 4 yards a pop. That's
you
a
see
lot.
about 4 of them there.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, on this.
Yep.
So we're going inside zone here, right? You can see that by the path. He's not continuing out there. The eyes are inside right away. Again, based on the leverage here, reading the blocks, right? We got the combo working out to the defensive end, so clearly that's a cutback read. Same with the center. Backside combos washing through. If we get Myrick to stay on there, we're at the next level against the safety, but we don't get that. But, Ollie Gordon says, the hell with it. I'm going to take care of it anyways. And even though Myrick is not able to, kind of drag that defender down with him, or Rucci's not able to kick him out, right? Neither of those happen. And we get to this point, and, Ollie Gordon doesn't try to bounce it. Ollie Gordon takes it directly through that defender, is able to keep his feet moving, and get that extra 4 or 5 yards, that you're talking about is his average after contact, which is pretty impressive.
Now, Coach, let me ask you this. What was the down and distance on this play and the quarter number? So that way our listeners can look at it later.
Yeah, I will try to get that for future videos. I do not have that with today's.
No worries. Let me see if I can actually find it. 1 second. This was the Detroit game, right? He got 4 or 5 yards out of this one.
Let's see. So it started about the 32. It looks like
26. I think
it ended on the 26.
Yeah. I mean, and just while Hussam is looking this up, one of the other things that I really wanted to kind of point out.
This was a second and 4, I believe. No, he's way back there. Hold on. This is a first and 10, and he gained 6 yards. So this is a successful rush by the success metric criteria. Also positive EPA on this because of the down and distance and where he is on the field. So this was, you can say in terms of advanced metrics, a positive rush, positive EPA, and a 100% success rate on this rush. Now, given this was a De'Von Achane, and I said this on the solo podcast when I talked about Ollie Gordon bringing the physicality, De'Von Achane would not be able to do that. Jalen Wright, maybe, but Lord have mercy. This guy is 21, 22, doing this to 6'4", 6'5" defensive tackles? Like, golly, Ollie Gordon. The Dolphins may have found something with this kid. It's early, but let's see what happens, man, this regular season. I'm pumped up. I'm fired up about this kid.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like with Ollie Gordon. I think we didn't even get to talk about it. I think the pass catching stuff is a lot better than people anticipated early on. But the last thing that I just wanted to kind of, mention here is, of all these plays that we've looked at maybe, this one here's got decent blocking, but we've looked at maybe one play with a real ideal blocking setup, which was the duo. And, Ollie Gordon is consistently, even though, he's not getting the most advantageous blocking, it hasn't all been horrible, but he's making the most out of what he's being given. And I think that's really one of the biggest compliments that you can give to a running back.
And
Early on.
And you know what? Ollie Gordon was in the Heisman contention about 2 years ago because he also had really good blocking, specifically interior blocking 2 years ago. Okay, those redshirt juniors and seniors and fifth-year seniors left. You're left with a middling O-line with patch-up work, offensive coordinator issues, head coaching issues, a quarterback carousel. That adversity last season, I think it shows where he's just like, you know what? Let me just do this myself. Let me just try to get something out of nothing. And he's playing up against second stringers, third stringers, still trying to make the most of his opportunity. I want to see what he looks like up against starters, especially up against the Colts, the Bills, and the Jets defense as well. I think that will be a massive, massive indication up against those first round defensive linemen, edge rushers, and linebackers.
All right, as we get to the next one here, so as we talked about a little bit, this was blocked up really well. So this is what we call counter solid. So it's a counter play, but none of the linemen are pulling. All of the linemen are blocking down to the right, and your two tight ends are the ones that are taking care of your counter action. So it's going to be Hayden Rucci is essentially your kick-out man, even though he's kind of in what we call a sniffer alignment there. And he's just going to kick out the defensive end, and then you have Myrick looping around to pick up the linebacker, and then Ollie Gordon just, finding a lane there. So, again, this was a really well blocked up play. Like to see Ollie Gordon finishing strong at the end there. You've got 3 defenders on him, so he doesn't get the 4 yards here, but he's still not going backwards. So still like the way that he's finishing on that one.
Yeah, this was a 3-yard rush, successful play. Can't ask for more than that. Maybe all the 100% yardage, but hey, I'll take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then next one here, so you probably already saw that. So this is going to be looks like duo again, right? And one of the things I noticed on this that we'll talk about then, right? Obviously, we have a free linebacker coming through. Ollie Gordon doing a great job of continuing going forward on this cut and then planning and getting upfield, right? Beautiful play, as Eric talked about. When you can make something out of nothing, right? That's where the good backs really separate themselves. But what I want you to look at here, right? Because sometimes you look at this and you see the linebacker running through and you're like, somebody really screwed up because you should never have that. But watch Keon Smith here. And if you watch this big old paw here, right, left defensive hand of the defender, grabbing that shoulder and not allowing Keon Smith to go to that linebacker, and you'll see him pull him all the way around, and you see Keon looking for that flag out here on that, right? So just a tiny detail on the run blocking there that this could have easily been called a defensive holding penalty, but when we look at why this linebacker was coming through that Gordon had to evade, it was because Keon Smith was being held by the defensive tackle.
And just one other note there, I think it's also, this is a teach tape moment for Keon Smith a little bit too, where, hey, the play isn't over. Maybe if he's not calling for that flag, he gets to that second level and is able to attack that safety. And we're talking about maybe a touchdown versus, first and goal, which is still a great play, still something that you like seeing from Ollie. But, and to your point, very much did get held, but you just continue to play through. Yeah, I think with Ollie Gordon, you're going to be excited to see him with the starters. I think even as early as this week, we are going to be able to see him with the starters versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know I'm excited about the opportunity for him. I know everybody's really excited about the opportunity for him as we see how this running back room shapes up over the next couple of weeks here, and we lead into the final preseason game. Before we do close this out, Hussam, Coach Eric, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. Who starts if we're making the depth chart right now, gut instinct, who is RB2 at the start of the season?
Coach, I'll let you go first.
I give me on the spot. I still think it is a split, right? I don't think there's necessarily a 2 and 3. I think it's more of a 2A, 2B. I think that in terms of who comes in the game, I think that Jalen Wright is probably still going to be the first one in the game for now. But I think that where Jalen Wright is, maybe still stronger with the inside zone stuff, especially from the more spread out formations. I think Jalen Wright still has a little bit of an advantage there. And I don't know how much of the playbook Ollie Gordon knows. And that comes, that's huge when it comes to pass protection. There was on Discord earlier, there was a discussion about Ollie Gordon's PFF pass grade. And I went back, and of the 29 pass plays that Ollie Gordon has been in, he's only been asked to pass block on one of them, right? So how much do they really trust him in that role? But if we're talking about, early game, we're trying to run out the clock and we're still running outside zone, sitting here today, I feel better putting the ball in Ollie Gordon's hands on an outside zone run than I would with Jalen Wright.
Yeah, I think 2A is primarily Ollie Gordon just at this point. Jalen Wright did leave with a slight limp and an injury. I don't know. It's not looking too hot for Jalen Wright right now, but it's really dependent on the intangibles and the mentals, who can pick up the playbook the fastest, who can pick up the pass protection. If Wright is clear to play, I think we're going to see a lot of that evaluation plays in where the running backs will have to pass protect, who can pass catch, who has the better runs, the successful runs on outside zone, inside zones, duo, trap, counters, how they do with the motions, the backfield motions, if they can do the cross motions, the hop motions. I saw a lot of hop motions from Ollie Gordon today in camp. I think right now Ollie Gordon has the best shot. The only thing that concerns me, not of Ollie Gordon, but for Jalen Wright, and this was brought up by Kyle Krabs in our OnlyFans Discord, that Wright played in a Josh Heupel offense where the offense is entirely spread out. They are making plays in space. The hashes and where the ball is placed is completely different than the NFL.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, the players know, especially the defenders, they know how to play in space. They can attack the gaps. They can attack, empty spaces, parts of the field. They're faster. They're stronger. They're just overall better than some of these, players that play in the SEC or other Big 10, Big 12 conference opponents. And I think that is just an opportunity curve for Jalen Wright, even though we saw some successes of him last season, especially that New England game. I've been charting some of Jalen Wright's runs from last season, and the one thing that's been indicative to me from last season with Jalen Wright, Raheem Mostert, and De'Von Achane, not only was the blocking bad for all three running backs on average, it was particularly worse for Jalen Wright last season because of the amount of snaps and opportunities he got. And also, if you think about it, this is a brand new offensive line with two improved guards. Austin Jackson pretty much back from injury, albeit he's still recovering. And Wright is playing with second and third string offensive linemen, so it's not first team offensive linemen. We haven't really been able to properly evaluate that, although the Dolphins teams, coaches, and officials have. I'm sure they're taking that evaluation into consideration. But depth chart wise, Eric, you should really take that with a grain of salt. It's about snap counts rather than the depth chart.
Yep. No,
Yeah, well,
absolutely. Yep.
go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say definitely snap counts over depth chart.
Yeah, I think snap counts matter week to week, and that'll establish like there's no more established starters in the Mike McDaniel offense for running backs, defensive linemen, defensive backs, and even edge rushers as well, particularly those skill positions. Wide receiver 3 and 4, it can be interchangeable depending on what type of schematic coverages they're playing, what their game plan is, but it's week to week, man. And with that, we'll go ahead and close off the show. Coach and Eric, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And as always, y'all stick with us here on Scouting the Fins, part of the 3 Yards Per Carry Podcast Network, also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. As always, go Fins, baby.